Hello there, friends. Welcome to another episode of Brown Bags and Bibles, where we break down life's biggest befuddlements with biblical basics. I'm Scott Wakefield, lead pastor at First Christian Church, joined as always by
Mark Liebert, one of the elders serving here with Scott at First Christian Church.
I always think, is joined by correct or should be joined with?
Well, I'm here.
You are. So I'm joined by you. We have joined for BB&B. And we are doing a couple more in our series of new religious movements and world religions. And some of those new religious movements included some cultic kinds of things here and there, some sects, SETCS. Now we're doing denominations, and we're going to cover two today.
Yeah, two. These are not related.
Right.
If you're
but it's a short.
They're short, right.
Little helpful introduction, so bundling them together.
Right. So IFCA first, and then we'll cover Sovereign Grace. So again, just a couple shorter ones we put together in one episode.
So what's IFCA?
Yeah, so IFCA, the name in 1996 was changed from Independent Fundamental Churches of America, so you can see the acronym,
IFCA,
to just IFCA International. It's a fairly big denomination, nearly 1,000 churches in the mostly in the U.S., but there are 3 times that number of associated churches in 26 countries outside the U.S. Interesting.
Yeah.
This is personal to me.
Oh, here we go. I'm just kidding.
That's funny. I was baptized at age 12 and then married at age 24 in my home church, an IFCA church in Indiana, Twin Branch Bible Church. It's no longer IFCA, but it was at the time. And our pastor for several years was the executive director of the IFCA when I was a member there. So, this is a background that I have. My wife was an IFCA church member in Washington State, I believe. So very personal to me.
Nice. So you mentioned, and made me think of this, we'll get to this a bit here, but you mentioned that there are more in the U.S. because the history is tied to fundamentalist, modernist controversy in the teens and 20s, 19 teens and 20s. So that's some of the history.
Yeah.
Founded technically in 1930.
Right, as a successor to the American
Conference of Undenominational Churches.
Yeah. So just our research here, by the way, a lot of this comes from what is the IFCA. So you can look that up. Just type in what is IFCA, ifca.org. What is IFCA? So the IFCA was founded in 1930. Yes, the new organization took the name Independent Fundamental Churches of America and strove to provide fellowship, encouragement, and identification for independent churches and individuals. At the time, as Scott was saying, modernism was on the rise in America.
Yep. And
the mainline denominations, Methodist, Presbyterian, etc., were coming under the influence of leaders who denied primarily the inerrancy of the Bible and other core doctrines. So many churches were taking a stand against modernism to hold to orthodoxy. So they were leaving their denominations, and the IFCA was designed to give them a spiritual home. So as Scott was saying, this was founded out of concern for modernism, which was undermining the authority of the Bible, the inerrancy, and effectively a number of what we would call the fundamentals of the faith.
Yeah. You named inerrancy. There were 5. Inerrancy of Scripture, the virgin birth and deity of Christ, substitutionary atonement of Christ, bodily resurrection, and then the authenticity of miracles and bodily return.
Yeah.
As important fundamentals that distinguished between taking the Scriptures seriously. You named that because that's kind of the thing, right? Yeah. But there are some of those other things like supernaturalism is real, and miracles did happen, and his resurrection was bodily, and he wasn't just a myth. That kind of stuff is important for the founding of not just IFCA, but a lot of churches in America at the time.
So if you hear the word fundamental, I know it has a different word connotation today.
Right.
What it meant 100 years ago was a stand against liberalism and modernism that was undermining the key teachings of the faith.
Yep.
So that's why in 1996 they changed it to just IFCA, because fundamental was becoming more pejorative, more negative in its connotation.
Yes. The small f fundamentalism was becoming a negative thing, as opposed to the capital F that was the main 5+ things we just talked about.
Yeah, so we're very thankful for the stand they took 100 years ago and holding to the orthodoxy of the faith.
Yep. So what's church like?
Well, again, taking from this article we've told you about, it's a fellowship of evangelical conservative churches committed to, quote, enhancing the strength of the church by equipping for, encouraging toward ministry partnerships to accomplish Great Commission objectives, unquote.
It says, overall, in our notes here, overall, IFCA international churches are good, strong, biblically based churches. This was written by Mark.
Well, that part, okay, fair enough, it was.
I'm just kidding.
I do have some background here. Right.
No, that's true. It's good.
Yeah.
So in terms of polity,
which again is the way they govern themselves.
That's right. Yep. How they govern themselves as churches. They're known for strongly conservative doctrine.
Oh, yes.
And they reject ecumenism.
That's kind of an important thing.
Yes. ECUMENISM. Ecumenism, being ecumenical, was at the time a way that a lot of churches would begin to talk about, let's unify with each other.
Right. Let's I don't want, they wouldn't say this, but let's get rid of some of the strict stands, find the central things.
Yes.
But you end up
theoretically.
Yeah. What you end up doing is rejecting some of the key things if you can't agree on everything.
Yes. We don't have to talk about the bodily resurrection of Christ.
Right.
If you live into the truth of the spiritual stuff there, and I'm trying to sound sort of ethereal and abstract on purpose, because that's kind of how you end up having to talk about it mythically.
Yep. So they stood against that.
IFCA and really lots and lots and lots and lots of conservative evangelical churches in America stood against some of that ecumenism. And ecumenism was a way of joining with one another for the sake of the gospel, they would say.
Right.
But they would just kind of define down a lot of those things. And you end up being so open that you stand on little eventually.
That's exactly right. That's the danger. So again, talking about the polity, the article says churches have varying degrees of ecclesiastical separation, and they emphasize personal separation. And I very much felt this in my home church. Some IFCA churches, again, still from the article, have been known to take ecclesiastical and or personal separation to unbiblical extremes, although the IFCA itself emphasizes a biblical balance. So I saw this. I saw this in my home church. And again, godly people, I grew so much under the pastors there, respect them greatly. One of those pastors married my wife and me, officiated for our wedding. So I think very highly of them. But when I was a high schooler and I was thinking of going to Bible school for training, I considered Moody Bible Institute in Chicago because my parents had graduated from there. And I was living in South Bend, Indiana. It's like 2 hours away. So I was thinking of this. And there were people in my home church who, because of this push against ecumenism and separation being really important, told me, don't go there.
Don't go to Moody.
Don't go to Moody. Right. Because Moody allowed Billy Graham to come speak.
That's right.
And that's a problem because Billy Graham on stage lets people who are Catholic, not necessarily Protestant, be part of his group of people that you can go to for counsel.
Even if they didn't preach. Right. Even if they don't speak.
Right.
Yes.
So because of what he did and because Moody allowed him to speak, we therefore could not support Moody in any way.
That's right.
And I remember thinking at the time, good grief,
who is safe?
Yeah. That's a lot of separation.
Who do I go to?
That's a lot of separation. Right. That's an example of what I would say wasn't a healthy separation. It was a little bit extreme. Again, godly people, I just felt at the time it was probably taken a little too far.
And that's an example of what we call second-degree separationism, which is you can become so concerned with purity and separation as a doctrine which oftentimes would be in the statements of faith, confessions of faith would be a purity doctrine, which sounds great at first, and it's true insofar as obedience and even those with whom we have partnerships and associations. That needs to be thought about, because everybody has a line, whether you're ecumenical or you're fundamental.
Right.
Everybody has to draw a line.
Yeah.
And being clear about it is good. But the second-degree separationists wouldn't associate with people who associated with people.
That's what it was.
Who were considered a little bit,
Yeah, you said it well. Second-degree separation. Don't associate with those who associate with.
Even if the person who's associating with the 2 degrees back, even if like the Billy Graham in this example, even if you think, oh, Billy Graham, I like him, he's great, he's fine, but he associated with.
Right.
Therefore, I can't associate with somebody who associated with Billy Graham.
Yeah, that's the way it was. And I don't know that it was necessarily the stand of the church, but I was counseled this at least multiple times.
It was in the
social
socio-cultural
it was clearly
waters
told to me.
Right.
Yeah.
I grew up with some of that even in my own ways, though not quite so extreme with, well, you don't want to go to this place, you might want to go to that one, that's fine. Which, again, you do have to think about.
Sure.
That's important.
Sure. Yeah. And I did end up going to Moody, by the way. I had a great education.
You heretic.
And they loved me still, even if some of them weren't pleased that I did.
Yes, hesitantly maybe.
All right, so let's talk about the distinctives.
Watch out for that Liebert kid.
We obviously have mentioned some of the distinctives, but here's 6 of them, again, from this article. I said it once, but again, look up ifca.org. What is IFCA?
And the way we've listed these have the word biblical in the front?
On purpose.
On purpose.
Oh, yeah.
I assumed.
Yes.
Yes.
They say biblical doctrine, biblical leadership, biblical outreach. So you're going to hear that through those. So biblical doctrine, I'll cover this, you cover the next one. So the importance of the historic fundamentals. So Scott just mentioned a bunch of these. There's not a bunch. Inerrancy, virgin birth, substitutionary atonement, literal resurrection. They include second coming, the eternal joy of the redeemed, and the eternal judgment. So some of the historical fundamentals.
Sure. Yeah. Biblical leadership, meaning leadership has to have Christ-like integrity, humility, zeal, and sacrifice. Christ-like sacrifice for the sake of the body. Yep.
Biblical outreach, so evangelism at home and abroad.
Mm-hmm. Biblical partnerships, accomplishing more together than separately, though be careful about making sure you're separate enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Biblical excellence, doing the best we can for his glory, which, by the way, we're not opposed to any of these things so far.
No.
These are good statements.
And biblical excellence in the way they would have typically, and maybe still do, phrased it, would be a shortcut for a bit of the don't smoke, don't chew, don't go with boys who do, kind of moralistic things about how you live your life, not just do things with excellence and to God's glory, though that's true.
Yeah.
It might have included a bit of that, this is how you look and feel when you separate. Now, of course, I don't think they would do that in terms of their doctrinal statements typically. Mm-hmm. But sometimes at churches you'll find to be a member here means you don't smoke, you don't drink.
Yeah.
For example.
Yeah, and again, I'm trying to be careful here because I love and respect the people.
And it changes from church to church because they are congregational.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. My wife's church had a different experience.
Yes.
She's told me that. She said, wait a minute, that was what your home church was like? I was IFCA, and it wasn't that way. So again, it varies by church.
Right.
And I respect and highly love the people who molded a lot of who I am. But one of the policies was you couldn't have recorded music. You could only have live music. Yeah.
I'm so glad you shared that publicly. That you couldn't have recorded music.
Had to be live.
I'm not sure if that's terrifying or awesome.
It was a
It's
fascinating
very
policy. Yeah.
Yes.
We couldn't have recorded music. It had to be live music. I don't really understand.
Meaning in our worship.
In our worship.
Not you personally.
No, not me personally.
That doesn't make sense.
But in worship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. IFCA wouldn't have been weird. I know that plenty of other churches had similar kinds of
Yeah. Certainly they weren't
policies.
the only ones. But
yeah.
It was a way that they drew a line of separation to protect themselves from what they saw as excess and dangers of recorded music.
Yeah.
So I'm just giving it as an example.
No, that's a great one.
I mean, yeah.
And then finally, a distinctive about the end times. So
Yeah.
this definitely is a distinctive
Yes.
in one sense, in that a lot of dispensational churches weren't formed together in formal ways like IFCA. It's one of the very few, I mean, maybe there are others, we are a denomination of being dispensational.
Yes. So what does that mean from an end times perspective? If
Yeah,
you're
what
not
does that
familiar,
mean?
If you're
Yes.
not familiar, it means they would hold to the Left Behind series. If you're
Yes.
familiar with those movies and books,
A pre-trib rapture, a pre-mill return of Christ.
a literal 1,000-year reign
Yes.
on the earth. All of that happening before the final judgment and final state.
Yes.
If you're familiar with any of the schematics of this will happen, then this will happen, then exactly this will happen, then this will happen, that tends to be dispensational.
Yes.
So
As a subset of premillennialism.
Right.
Yes. So as a subset of pre-mill, you have pre-trib,
Right.
post-trib kinds of things.
pre-trib,
Yes.
the rapture occur. You'll hear the word rapture. The rapture occurs before the 7-year literal tribulation.
Right.
Then the church returns at the end of the 7-year tribulation for Christ to set up his literal 1,000-year millennial reign on the earth, during which there are still believers and unbelievers mixed in.
Right.
So I'm just giving you some taste of what that is. And it's not that is all necessarily wrong, because that absolutely could be true. The point is,
It is a biblically
Yes.
held position.
You absolutely can support that from the Bible.
I don't personally agree with it in its entirety.
Right. I don't either.
A
But
lot of the principles in spirit,
yes,
I do.
But please hear us well. We see how that can be supported from
Sure,
Scripture.
sure.
That's absolutely an orthodox view.
I don't think we read the word biblical in front of this, but you could have said biblical at
biblical.
times.
Right. The point is, it becomes the right way to interpret it.
The hermeneutic for everything.
Right.
It becomes a lot of things.
Right. Because I have dear family members who hold to this.
Sure. We have people in this church
a
who do.
biblical view.
We have people who are a part of First Christian who do.
Yeah.
So there are some famous folks
Yeah.
you may have heard of from the IFCA, a few of which I have not.
Okay.
The first 3 of which I have not.
Okay. Well, then let's go with the ones we've heard of.
Well, Les Lofquist apparently isn't unknown because he's listed as a famous figure.
Well, he was in the article.
Same as Richard Bargus and Tom Zobrist, but I've never heard
I've heard of Tom Zobrist. But give some of the others.
So J. Oliver Buswell, M.R. Dehaan, Dehaan, was another well-known one. I think, let's see, Martin Dehaan. He was pastor of Undenominational Church, Calvary Undenominational Church of Grand Rapids. Yeah, he's West Michigan guy. Charles Ryrie, a lot of people know that name.
You should have heard of the Ryrie Study Bible.
For sure. John Walvoord, Walvoord.
Taught at Dallas Theological Seminary.
Was well known, wrote a lot of books. J. Vernon McGee, super well known.
Bible teacher.
He was on the radio a ton. And just passed away yesterday, as of the recording of this, John MacArthur.
John MacArthur, yeah.
Yeah.
So
there are plenty of others that a few may have heard of, like Charles Feinberg.
Sure.
Who
he was at Trinity Seminary, right?
Yes. At Talbot Theological Seminary as well.
Okay.
I think Charles is, well, there are other Feinbergs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are some names you should know of.
Yeah. The founder of Awana.
Oh, yes.
As well.
That's right.
Lance Latham.
Okay. Yeah. Definitely heard of Lance Latham.
Awana Children's Ministry. A lot of churches, even
Approved
beyond
workmen are not
IFCA.
ashamed. Awana. I went through it. My church had it, as you can imagine.
I did not go through it.
Being an IFCA church.
Yes. But folks will be familiar with Awana.
Yeah. So, just closing out this episode, or this first half of the episode. Again, you can go to that article. What is IFCA? IFCA.org for more information. Obviously, some godly people here. There's a heritage that we greatly respect.
Sure.
But some very peculiarities and some nuances of the way things are viewed. The danger being the separation, or having to interpret specifically one way for it to be biblical. End times being one of those things. John MacArthur, great Bible teacher, learned so much from him. Clearly a dispensationalist, which, by the way, at its core, dispensationalism just means there's a difference between God's plan for the church and God's plan for Israel.
Yes.
And you interpret the Bible in light of that.
And they are harder and faster categories
Yeah.
than many will hear what you just said.
Yeah.
They are different.
Yeah, like so if you see a promise to Israel in the Old Testament, that must be literally fulfilled for Israel at some point.
Sure.
And the church does not have anything to do with that necessarily.
Right. Yes. And that's a good way to say it, because most folks will think, oh, of course it's fulfilled.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's also they don't always say, but there's an also say.
Sure. So that just maybe someday we'll cover those things, but.
Yeah. For now, let's just leave it at that.
All right, that was IFCA.
So now to turn.
Yep, turn.
To Sovereign Grace churches.
Sovereign Grace, yes. You may not have heard of Sovereign Grace. Some have. One of our research assistants here has.
Research assistant. You just got an upgrade. I'm not sure that's an upgrade.
Sovereign Grace churches were originally known as People of Destiny International.
Yes.
Until 2002. They're headquartered in Louisville, Kentucky. They don't have a lot of churches, 66 U.S., 68 internationally.
But they do have quite a bit of
They have an
influence.
Impact. They have influence and impact, yes. Mm-hmm. So do you have personal experience? I can share mine in a minute.
Oh, I've been to conferences where C.J. Mahaney and Bob Coughlin have been there. There are a couple other little experiences such as that, but yeah.
So I did visit a Sovereign Grace church when I was in Orlando, primarily because I was a part-time unpaid volunteer worship leader. And I wanted to learn. Sovereign Grace puts out a lot of good stuff related to music and worship. Sovereign Grace Music, you may have heard of. They have a strong influence there. Bob Coughlin is the director of Sovereign Grace Music. I follow him on social media. Great guy. I've heard him preach. That's the impact it had primarily on me, is they take music seriously so that they write it with powerful words. Some of the words of their songs have been incredibly meaningful to my wife and me because it's not fluff.
Sure, right. Yeah.
It's really well thought out. So Sovereign Grace Music comes from Sovereign Grace Churches, which is a denomination.
Yes.
In case you think that's just a name that's used.
And something I just pulled up said they have about 133 churches now.
Oh, okay.
So
all right. So where did you find that?
On ChatGPT.
Okay, ChatGPT. You can go to, obviously, sovereigngrace.com is where we got some of the information we're about to give you, sovereigngrace.com/home. But obviously, sovereigngrace.com would give you a lot of this information. Try to use first source articles here.
Before I forget, Worship Matters by Bob Coughlin is a book he wrote that's a very good, important book.
Yes. Worship. I love it. Worship Matters.
Worship Matters.
Yeah,
right.
Bob Coughlin. Coughlin is K-A-U-F.
K-A-U-F-L-I-N.
L-I-N. Yeah, we would recommend Worship Matters. Yeah, it helped. I did that for almost a decade in Orlando, and his training really helped me as a worship leader.
Yeah, and there are lots of other books we could talk about with worship, et cetera. One thing I like about it is that it says very clearly worship is theological before it's musical.
Yeah.
And I think that is a vitally important thing that many churches have just lost.
Yeah. In other words, don't come up with a fancy tune and try to put words to it. Come up with some deep thoughts about God and then go from there.
It has to start there.
Yeah. All right, so what's the history here?
Well, it started out as a group of young believers in the 70s. Reading the Bible with fresh eyes, they were captured by a New Testament vision of interdependent congregations.
Again, this is coming from them, so this is how they would say it.
Which is pretty much what you would say about just about any church movement or group or denomination. They saw churches existing not in distant association, but in close and vital partnership with one another. This vision spread to a handful of churches, then to new churches established across the U.S., eventually outside the U.S., and a global family of churches was born.
That's right. What churches like? So they use the Book of Church Order.
Which sounds pretty formal compared to how it typically looks and feels.
It strikes me as Anglican, but it defines the structure and the key values of gospel partnership in Sovereign Grace churches. Subscription to the Book of Church Order requires elders to comply with what it explicitly mandates and refrain from what it explicitly forbids while operating in biblical wisdom according to Sovereign Grace values and all other matters. So they actually have this controlling document.
Sure, and I think just for evangelicals like, oh, Book of Church Order, that sounds Anglican, like you mentioned, that's not a bad thing because Paul literally says everything referring to worship should be done decently and in order.
That's biblical.
So the way these churches who might have a little bit more of a liturgical feel to them come up with words like Book of Order is just from the Bible.
Yeah, it is.
For the record.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing.
Yeah. Polity, how they're governed. Governmental structure is representative and decentralized. Every pastor is a member of a regional assembly of elders. That's capitalized.
Yeah, so they're Presbyterian in that sense.
Yeah. Every church appoints a delegate to serve on the council of elders. So in this way, all denominational authority is derived from and certified by local elderships.
Yep. And a representative from the church.
Yes. There is a global leadership team. This is a small group of men, all of whom are members of Sovereign Grace churches. They don't occupy a special church office, but are recognized as having broad leadership gifting in particular areas. So there's definitely some Presbyterianism in there.
Yes, it's both Presbyterian and yet associational in its Baptistic sense.
Yeah.
That because it's not a special church office, what they do downward has to always run through the local elders.
Okay.
And they're not necessarily, as far as I understand, they're not necessarily thoroughly obligated to take what the folks up top say as gospel.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure about that though. But I think it's meant to be an in-between.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah.
All right, so let's list 8 distinctives, coming from their article themselves. So they are Reformed in theology, meaning they're Calvinistic, which again, just to simplify that, God sovereignly chooses those who are saved in order to display his immeasurable grace and glory, passing over others.
Yes. That's
Calvinistic Reformed theology.
They are soteriologically Calvinistic in terms of tulip, if that means something to you.
Right.
They are gospel-centered for sure, gospel-centered doctrine and preaching. They are credo Baptist or credo Baptist, meaning they are believers' baptism. They are not paedo-Baptist, infant baptism.
So they're not Presbyterian in that sense.
They're not Presbyterian in that sense. They would say we are covenantal.
Yes.
Some of the Presbyterians might say you're not that covenantal.
Right.
So they're credo Baptist. Here's a bit of the main distinction, though, between Sovereign Grace and many Reformed churches.
Right.
Is they are continuationist.
Yes. Continuationist as opposed to cessationist.
Yes, they are, generically speaking, open to the gifts of tongues.
Yep.
And prophesying in that sense.
Yep.
They do it in a structured and organized way.
Yes. So I attended a church in Orlando there. I was trying to get some information on their worship, and I went and I noticed they had people come up to the mic to do words of faith or prophecy, and they invited anyone to come, but it was a short period of time. There was one microphone. You had to go through a pastor or elder before you got to the microphone. Uh-huh. And so I thought, this is very structured and careful.
It's not just like whomever.
It's not wanton chaos.
Right, sure.
Which I have seen in other churches.
I have witnessed as well.
So,
would they have included healing, prayer of healing?
I didn't see that in the one I attended.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Yeah. I think often, I'm not going to speak to it because I'm not that sure about how Sovereign Grace works that out. They are, so they're charismatic in terms of the charismatic gifts, which, depending on how you define all that, I would say I'm open to all the charismatic gifts. Yeah. A couple of them I think have ceased. So they're distinctively charismatic in that sense. With continuationism, but they're also complementarians.
They are.
In terms of men and women and leadership of church and home.
Right. Male leadership in the home and the church.
Yes.
Yeah, complementarianism as opposed to egalitarianism.
Yes.
Yeah. They are elder-governed and elder-led. We've mentioned that.
Plurality of elders / pastor.
They are focused on missions, church planting, outreach, global mission. And then lastly, interdependence, which you heard about their history. They're united in fellowship, mission, and governance. So it's an interesting blend.
It is. And I think, I'm sure I'm technically wrong about this, because there's got to be something that exists beyond what I know. But I think they're about the only formally denominational, reformed, continuationist church.
Yeah, that's right.
There are examples of others within other denominations here and there, where the denominations are very congregational or they're entirely congregational and thoroughly independent. That happens occasionally here and there. But I don't know if there is a formalized thing that is reformed and continuationist.
Yeah. I have great respect for them. Scott and I are not continuationists. You can go back and see our episodes on that. But I will say, of everything I've seen out there, this is the one I respect the most.
Sure.
Because I feel like it tries to hold to 1 Corinthians order. It's careful, it's structured, it's elder-led. I think if there was a congregation I was going to be a part of that was continuationist, I would choose this one, even though I am not continuationist.
If I were forced to be in a church where I didn't have another option for something
There you go.
different.
All right, famous figures you may not have heard. You mentioned C.J. Mahaney.
Yep.
Gifted preacher.
Mark Prater.
Yeah.
And then also we already mentioned Bob Coughlin.
Yeah, Bob Coughlin. I would encourage you, if you're interested in good music that has some depth to it, it's going to make you think when you sing, go to Sovereign Grace Music.
Matt Boswell, Matt Papa.
Matt Papa, yeah, that's right. Forgot about Matt Papa.
Also a couple associated with them. Matt Boswell wrote Come Behold the Wondrous Mystery. Another good one.
Yeah, very good. You're not going to find... So, for example, they came out with Valley of Vision, I don't know, a decade ago, which was songs based on the Puritans' prayers.
Right.
I mean, you're talking about depth.
That was
good stuff.
Great. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So hopefully that's helpful to you.
It's a little bit of introduction to a couple of those. So, and I think one of the benefits of us having done this, extended series, but specifically about denominations and undenominations, is there's so much out there.
Yes.
And it gives some vocabulary for understanding the distinctives and where people are coming from theologically in terms of how they execute church polity and things like that. I think it's helpful for people to have some of those categories and terms for that.
Yeah. So tune in next time when we're going to talk about brethren churches. You've probably heard of that. We have one here in Greene County. So we'll talk about brethren churches next.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.